And I really still believe that that is the way to play against these great. You have to break their rhythm. Here's my Wimbledon trophy.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And you get like a small version. Federer or Nadal, anybody, Nadal, Djokovic, 7 games is completely different than Rusedski, Krajicek, 7 games.
Welcome to Off Court with Greg. Myself, Greg Rusedski, Kevin Palmer, and obviously Ashley Neves, the tennis mentor. Today, we've got a special guest, Richard Krajicek, the 1996 Wimbledon champion. We had a fascinating discussion with him today on how he would beat Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz and what tactics he would use. There was also another fascinating take in this interview about the ball changing at 5 and 7 to allow players to be more aggressive, to make the game a little bit quicker. On top of that, this week, he is the tournament director, and let's listen to the episode. Welcome to Off Court with Greg. We've got a special guest today, Richard Krajicek, the 1996 Wimbledon champion, the only Dutchman to win the championships, world number 4, and now he is the tournament director in Rotterdam for over 20 years. It's one of the best events throughout the year. I highly recommend everybody go visit the tournament, buy tickets. You have some great champions. Last year's champion was Carlos Alcaraz. Federer has won it on 3 occasions, which is the most than any other player. So, Richard, can you tell us a little bit about being a tournament director and what it entails running the Rotterdam event?
Yes, when I retired in 2003, and straight away I got the opportunity to become tournament director the year after. So in 2004, yeah, it's really nice. You stay close to tennis, and so there's for myself a lot of nice upside. Still visit some tournaments. The good thing is it's a 500 event, so it's a big tournament. We have a good budget, so there's many people employed. We have an operational manager and people who work the operations. We have people do all the PR, media, who sell like all the VIP. So I don't have to worry about that. So my main job is getting a good player field, to be the spokesman of the tournament. So do all the media interviews, go to all the meetings of the ATP. Sometimes they can be very simple, but sometimes there are big changes, and then you have to make sure that you are basically sharp and make sure that you are also part of whatever is going to happen. So in 2008, in the beginning, they didn't want to make us a 500, and then in the end, we were able to convince the CEO, Etienne de Villiers, to make Rotterdam a 500. So those are crucial moments. Every year, the nice thing is every year it's different. Sometimes everything goes fantastic. I like the last 2-3 years, and sometimes it goes less fantastic. So we had a couple of pullouts last couple of days. So, but also then I'm basically the spokesperson of tournaments. So I have to be in the media this morning on TV, and then explain why Alcaraz is not coming, and that that stuff happens, and you have to say it in such a way that still people understand we have a great tournament. So anyway, and now I'm talking to you, which I don't want to do, but I have to. It's part of my job.
Well, Rich, I was going to ask you about Carlos. It's not a massive surprise, probably, that he's pulled out. I mean, that's a draining experience. What he's just achieved in the history of our sport, isn't it?
Yeah. When I saw him on Friday, I was already like, and then he won, which I was actually surprised, because I was going in a meeting at 5-4 when Zverev was serving. I had to turn off my phone, and then I turned it on an hour later, and not only did he win, but he won 4 games in a row, or actually, 4 from 5-3 down. So I was like, okay, and then I thought, okay, this is gonna be difficult, because if we would have lost, you don't have the emotion of winning that Grand Slam, and you have 2 more days to recover. I thought there would be still a pretty good chance he was going to play, but when he made the final, I thought, Monday morning, I got the message from his agent, and people, were you like swearing in your house? I said, you know what? Yeah, in a way you expect it. So I was a little bit like, I wish I was sleeping an hour longer, because I woke up, I was like, I don't want to see this message. But it was not a big surprise. Like you said, it was unbelievable draining, and having the cramps, and then still coming back 2 days later, even though it was a relative easy final physically compared to the semis, and it was only 15 degrees Celsius, so it wasn't hot. Still, I was, like I said, I was in shock.
And if we look at the player field, even with his pulling out in the tournament, I mean, you've got a great lineup with the Auger-Aliassime, Diminor, Bublik. You still have quality players there. So even though you don't have the world number one, it's still one of the best draws and one of the biggest indoor tournaments in the world. So I wouldn't be too
Thanks.
disappointed. I know you
Yeah.
want the world number one, but these things happen. But I'd like to get onto your career a little bit as well, because, I'd like to walk us through that 1996 Wimbledon victory, because you were one of those guys everybody hated to play because big serve, good one-handed backhand. On that run, you ended Sampras's 25-win match streak at Wimbledon and then went all the way into the finals against Malavai Washington. And you've got to tell us about walking onto center court and what happened during the coin toss, because I'm sure you didn't forget that.
No, I didn't forget that. So I'll finish with the best part. And no, but walking on center court was really special. It always is special, but for the final, and it started already before we walked on because we both wanted that first seat. We both apparently, Washington and myself, played our matches in sitting in that first seat at the changeover, and not on the other side of the umpire chair. So we had to coin toss. We had to flip a coin for it. Who was gonna sit on that seat on this side of the umpire chair? Yeah, and then walking on, and all these people. I don't know, is it 14,000 or something? Yeah, I was nervous, and I thought, wow, first Grand Slam final, first Wimbledon final. And with all respect to Melvin Washington, he was not top 10 player and he was not typical grass player. So I thought this is probably my biggest chance ever. And he probably thought the same thing, to win a Grand Slam and to win Wimbledon. So a lot of nerves. And then, we do the coin toss and then we go for the photo op at the net post. And then, from the left is, I hear a women's voice shout. And so I look, and then there was this streaker, the girl wearing nothing except a little apron. She, just in case we didn't know what was under the apron, she even lifted the apron when she ran past. So that was interesting. And the funny thing was that the other day, I was like a couple of 2-3 months ago, I was in Portugal, and I spoke to a British person there, and she said that that the person was like a friend of hers, and because they both worked at the caterer, because that's how she got to all the way to center court. She was working for catering, the streaker, and so I met now a friend of the streaker now. So it was interesting.
But I mean,
and all the tension was gone. That's the only thing I can say.
True.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Did
Yeah.
it relax you because you're walking into the Wimbledon finals? Everybody was expecting you to win because of the run you had. You beat Steek, Wimbledon champion, Sampras, who won 25 times, and then all of a sudden you had this streaker come on. Did that just say, okay, this is my day, everything's going to happen? Because you won quite easily in 3 straight sets. It was your only major. You took your chance to win it. And I always felt that you could have won many more majors had it not been for all the injuries, especially with your knees throughout your career. And nobody liked to play you.
Yeah, I mean, I could have won more, but I also could have won 0. So it could have, yeah. So I'm happy with the one, but there's a couple of moments in my career, and I don't like to think too much about the injuries because that was part of me. I mean, that's because I had a tall body and just the way, but because I was tall, I also had a good serve. So I also saw, okay, I had a lot of positives, had a good reach at the net, but there were some negatives with the injuries. But for me, um, I thought when I lost to you in the US Open, I thought there was also a chance. I mean, there was a lot of wind, and I was a really good player in the wind, actually. And you were one of the few players that was better than me in the wind, I thought, somehow, because normally I grew up at the sea, and I always played with wind. So I never mind. I didn't like it in a way, but I was good at it. And we was like, I think 7-5, 7-6, 7-6, something like that. Really, I thought, to play Bjorkman to go to the final, which I think you did, right? You won.
Yeah, I got to the finals that year.
You lost to Rafter, and for me, Rafter, I think I had like a 6-1 or 7-1. I had a good record against Rafter. I like playing Rafter, and I think I lost once or twice to him. So that was an opportunity. I lost once to Edberg, also US Open in 5 sets, where I felt like, when I looked at the draw after. So there's been a couple of opportunities that could have gone differently, but yeah, still happy with the one. And yeah, injuries were just part of my build, I guess. So
I'm fascinated to hear you two guys get into your matches together. But Rich, I was looking at the draw of Wimbledon in the year you won it, and Greg was potentially in the third round, but unfortunately, Greg, it didn't quite work out. That would have been an interesting match if it had happened, right?
yeah, no, Greg was a tough player for me, and I think I'm pretty sure he beat me more than I beat him. I think I beat you once in Rotterdam, and you beat me in Tokyo. You beat me in U.S. Open a couple of times. Anyway, so tough. So, but I have to say, everything went good for me at Wimbledon. The way I played, I mean, I like the introduction. You said I had a good backhand. I didn't have a good backhand, but that week, that fortnight, I had an amazing backhand. That was like the big difference. I was hitting so many returns, passing shots, especially good backhand returns. And I didn't like to play you. You were lefty and you had the big serve. I mean, normally one of the two already was difficult, but I could manage. But for me, you were a tough player. So anyway, the lucky thing for me was Greg lost. And
Well,
what?
let's not
Yeah,
exaggerate. That was lucky. Come on.
no, but that made life a lot easier. I mean, if I look, yeah, you have to look at just analyze everything. Uh, Ivanisevic lost, where I had a bad record, lefty, big serve, and yeah, the better grass court player, but couldn't hold his nerve, I guess. Than Washington was Todd Martin. Todd Martin would have been a really tough final, also because he better grass, and he was 5-love up in the fifth. So so yeah, I'm like okay. And also Muster pulled out, so I got his spot in the seedings, which yeah, just sometimes it's just meant to be. Like sometimes things are not meant to be. There, the feeling, yeah. If maybe I would have beaten everyone, I wouldn't Greg that is because it was my tournament. I would have beaten Goran, but still, it was nice to play Stoltenberg instead of Goran. It was nice to play Brett Steven instead of Greg because at least I played Brett in the third round. So did you lose to Brett Steven or lose somebody else?
I can't even remember. I'm so old now. I can't remember the matches I've played apart from the ones I win.
What
And
did
the
you have
ones
for breakfast? What do you have for breakfast this morning? You remember that or not?
Yeah, I had a cup of coffee for breakfast. That was about it, really. So, I kind of have that memory where I was better than I once was, and I kind of try to forget the matches I lost as much. The older you get, you try to remember the good things that happened to you. But I want to ask you about your coaching relationship because you were with Ronan Guskid throughout your whole career, and he's working with Medvedev at the moment. So, that's very rare to have that consistency from the start of your pro career all the way to the end. And why did that relationship work so well for you?
Yeah, I have to say it was all him. Yeah, Rowan's a great guy. He's 10 years older. He used to work for the Federation. That's how I met him. And I remember I went on my first trip with him. And it was really in the beginning of my career was a satellite. A satellite was 4 weeks Poland. I grew up with my father who always put a lot of pressure on me. And when I lost, he was angry in general. And I always felt a lot of pressure there. And then suddenly there was this coach who understood my game where I had to go. So he knew a lot about serve and volley and about the serve and about the volley separately, but also the serve and volley game. And we talked before the match, and he's like, you know what? You're gonna mix up your serve. You're gonna go to the body, and when you go away from him, he's gonna hit probably cross court passing shot. And when you do play like this, you're gonna cover the line. And you know what? If he beats you, then you play like this. You just say too good, and we go back to the practice court. And I've never heard that, like that somebody's maybe too good or something like that. And I was, I really like that. So I had a pretty successful run there, made like 11 ATP points, which was a lot for me. And I remember calling him up because he was World Federation like a couple of days later. And I said, look, if I have enough money, I want to hire you. I don't have enough, any money at zero money. And if somebody comes to you that wants to work to me, talk to me first. I'll get a loan. I do anything. I'll see what I do. Now, and then I think we traveled a couple of more times. And then at one stage when I made enough money, we started working. And he's been, the perfect coach for me because he improved my game a lot. He helped me with my character because I was not always the best angry young man, and then angry middle-aged man, I guess. But now then they got better, and he also off the court he was a very good person for me. And And sometimes people said, "Oh, maybe it's time to change coach now because I don't know, you lost a couple matches." You know what? In the end, it's me on the court, and I can change coaches, but in the beginning, it can be new, like that. It works well for the first 3 to 6 months, but the end, I come back to the same person, which is me, which is the problem if things are not going well. So I always saw it like that, and I was just lucky, I guess, because he is such a knowledgeable coach, but such a good person. Like he knows how to. He looks at the person he works with, so he doesn't have like one way of working with somebody. With me, yeah, one way. Then he worked with Ančić also, who was much more intense than me on the court. Sometimes I was maybe a little bit there to wake me up, like, okay, come on, let's go now. And I'm sure with Medvedev is also different. So that's his strength. He looks at the player and he adjusts to that personality, and that's what makes him such a great coach. And we're still friends till this day. So I started to coach, and then I saw him more as a big brother, and in the end we became friends. And I'm so happy we went from 400 to number 4 in the Wimbledon title. All did it together. So yeah, really, really special.
When you look at tennis now, Richard, it feels very different. There was a lot of big servers back then. There was a lot of the courts were different, the balls were different. I mean, how do you assess how would you and Greg have got on now? Would you have adapted your game differently to play now? Do you think?
I think what's your highest ranking? 4, Greg?
Four, but
Yeah.
no Grand Slam titles,
Like
unfortunately.
like me. I think Greg and I would have been at least 3 or 2. So that
We're
yeah.
getting that Dutch sense of humor coming out there, but
No,
it's so
I
much
think
slower, isn't it?
I think in a way it would be difficult. I have to say those really top guys are really, really good, like Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic. Like I'm happy that I'm not playing when they're playing, because in our time, like I only had to beat Sampras basically. I beat Stitch too, but in general, now you see with Djokovic, he beats Sinner, and then there's Alcaraz. And before it was even worse. You maybe beat Murray, then you beat Nadal, and then Federer was waiting for you in the final. You had to beat 2 or 3 amazing players. Yeah, I think that the tennis level is much higher. The fitness level is higher. The longevity of the career is higher. The only thing I miss a little bit is basically nobody is really coming in anymore. I mean, Tsitsipas was doing it a little bit, and I really still believe that that is the way to play against these great. You have to break their rhythm. If you trying to, I would maybe I would lose 10 out of 10 times against Alcaraz and Sinner, but I would be coming in all the time. And it was anyway in my game, but from the baseline, you're not going to beat it. Like they're so good. And I miss it sometimes with players that yeah, like you lose so many times the same way. Yeah, and maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe they pass so well and they return so well, but yeah, I still believe that's the only thing I would like to see different in tennis now that there's a couple of really aggressive serve volley players, and then see what happens if they can break that. Yeah, I say that their game, break down the game a little bit of these top guys.
The other thing I'd add to that is conditions have changed dramatically in tennis. You look at the balls now, they're all pretty slow and fluffy. The courts are medium to slow. There's not many quick courts out there these days, so it doesn't really allow for the serve and volley. String technology as well with the Lexilon adds a little bit more rotation, so it's harder to serve and volley more often. But I'd like to see the mix. With Alcaraz, we see the drop shot being used. We see him coming forward a little bit more, but there's never going to be that pure serve and volley player unless the ATP and the ITF get together and decide, okay, we're going to have some fast courts or we're going to put him play a fast ball. And for me,
Yeah,
that's the change.
what's a shame is that I don't know if it's the quality of the ball nowadays, because materials are more expensive, but I think it's mainly because the rallies are so long. So by the time you've played 7 games or 9 for the ball change, they're so fluffed up. Yeah, I say they're heavier balls. Um, Last year before a tournament, basically a rule was in place to change the ball change from 7 to 9 to 5 and 7. And and I thought that would be already helping a lot. And then what I understood is like just before it was, because we as tournament we ordered extra balls already. We had extra balls at our event because the new rule was going to happen January 1st, 2025. And then like in the last week before Christmas, anyway, it didn't happen. Apparently, like what I heard, the clay quarters woke up like, oh wow, we don't want it, like, and then it didn't happen. So that would be, besides maybe making the court file, I don't know, but that already would help tennis a lot, because by the end, before like the last couple of balls before the ball change, games before the ball change, already the balls are so fluffed up, and you don't recognize the balls anymore. Like at the end, like what is this? It's like completely. I mean, normally it's a bit older, but now the difference is huge. So I don't know if they put more felt on it. I have no idea, but there's too much difference. So the 5-7 ball change would have already been, I think, a very good step towards that.
Yeah, I love that idea. I'd never really thought about that. And that's something I think maybe the ATP needs to trial somewhere. Why not try it at the next gen finals? If they do the shorter games, give it a go there and see how it goes. And I think that would make people be more attacking, more aces, a little bit more serve and volley. So I like that idea. I hadn't thought about that one. So
And you
that,
can
that
keep doing that because you don't want to make the court too quick. Because I know it from, as tournament director, you see what's happening. Like we changed brands of balls in 2010, and we kept the same court, and then we found out that the new balls were a lot quicker. So our matches were lightning. They were so fast. We had Tsonga Söderling final, and after 50 minutes, it was set and 4-0 or 5-0 even. And I was like, oh wow, this is going too quick. And then luckily, the other guy won the second set, and then it was a 3-set match, 1 hour 20, which is quick for a 3-set match. But so and then so you want to adjust the speed that it's still good rallies, good length of man, not too slow. But I think for the consistency of the game, 5-7 ball change would be the way to go, because I think you shouldn't look almost at the amount of games. You should look at the amount of time. That's how the ball change should be based upon, because Nadal, Federer, or Nadal, anybody, Nadal, Djokovic, 7 games is completely different than Rusedski, Krajicek, 7 games.
I want those balls to keep if I'm using them secondhand.
Which I was going to ask you about. There's a theory that the tournaments and the ATP want Sinner and Alcaraz to get to all the finals, if you like, and they've made the conditions this kind of neutral on every surface. It's almost like clay and grass is not massively different now. Is that good for the game or not?
No, I don't know the first statement if that's true. Of course, you want your top players to do well, but yeah, I don't think we keep it. Looking at Rotterdam, we keep it all the same. The fact is that it used to be incredibly impressive to win French Open, Wimbledon. 2 reasons was: one, there was only 2 weeks in between. Now it's 3 weeks. There's 1 more week, and the other one was, of course, there was not a bigger difference between surfaces as you have between grass and clay. And clay, I guess, is still the same, but the grass somehow has become slower, and I think it's because of the soil under it. I don't know. And what I hear, I haven't played on it really. I mean, I played the seniors, but I don't feel anything anymore, like what speed it is, but you want nice matches. So you don't want it too quick, you don't want it too slow. You want to find a good balance. So I think that's. I don't think they do it. I mean, they're just the best players now, and that's why they win. Alcaraz and Sinner a lot, but as a tournament, you want nice matches, not too quick, but also not too slow that nothing is happening, and then you end up a lot of times in that medium range of speed of courts and speed of balls.
And also, Richard, I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now and what your life's like. Obviously, you're married for 25 years to Daphne. You've started a foundation, the Richard Krajicek Foundation for underprivileged kids for soccer and tennis. You also have a son who plays tennis, and I hear that he might be in the qualifying this weekend as well. So, can you go into your life now, what it's like, your daily routine, and what's life like now after being retired for so long?
Yeah, it's in a way pretty good. I mean, like I really love my job. tournament director. I hope to do it for many years, like in New Wales. Tommy Haas, tournament director, but like the tournament CEO or something is Ray Moore, and he's in his 80s. So I always say he's my example. I want to do this when I'm in my 80s also, because you stay close to top tennis. Also, you're around young people in a way, but you also go to the tournaments, and tennis is my passion. I love that. Yeah, busy. So mainly with the tournament, but I also have my own foundation where we have that exists now for over 29 years. So next year is 30 years. So a lot of privileged kids we build playgrounds for in their neighborhood. So 135 now throughout Holland. And we give a lot of scholarships away so they become sports teachers and they come also work for us or they work somewhere else. Yeah, a long time now with my wife, Daphne. We're together for over 30 years, married for 27, 8 now. Yeah, all good. And a little bit of a scare I had last year in May. I had heart surgery. So I have a big open wound, I say, scar here. And I'm saved by a British invention, actually. It was invented over 20 years ago by engineers. It's a pair surgery, it's called. And my aorta was side aneurysm. And I met and also Tal Goldsworthy is his name. It was really interesting to meet the inventor of my surgery. So I had that also done, and recovered well from it. And I hope in a couple of months I can go back cycling in the mountains, which is my passion when I'm not working.
Richard, you've got something on your mantelpiece there. I think we should look at before we let you go. There's something that Greg would like to have on his mantelpiece behind. If you don't mind,
I think any tennis player would like to have on their mantelpiece.
I'd love it.
Yeah. So it's actually, this is my office. It's a mess. A lot of family pictures. I bought on an auction or somewhere. I bought a picture of Bjorn Borg and signed by him. And this is me winning Wimbledon. But the one you're talking about is my Wimbledon trophy.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And you get like a small version with at the back of your name. But the nice thing is I found by accident on top of it is the picture of the return I hit on match point at Wimbledon. I guess it's really bad quality, but I really liked it. So I got that framed in a way. So yeah, that's So this is my little office where it's full with family pictures, but also a few Wimbledon career memorabilia.
Yeah, well, Richard, I'd really like to thank you for joining us here.
I can, if you want, I can lease it to you for a couple of weeks or something. You want to. Yeah.
No, I think you've got to earn that to have one of those. It's like having a fake Oscar as an actress or an actor. You got to have the real deal or don't have it. And you earn that. I mean, that's a very special trophy to have. And no, we're really happy to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us with Off Court with Greg. We're glad you're feeling better now after that surgery and you're nearly back to 100% health. You run a great event in Rotterdam, and we wish you the best of luck for the tournament coming up, as well as for your son this weekend in qualifying. He got a wild card from the Federation who does the wild cards. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to have you on again. So thanks again, Richard. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Kevin. Really enjoyed it.
Just great to hear from Richard. Pleasure to always have him on the podcast. Ashley, unfortunately, you weren't with us for that interview. What were your thoughts on what Richard had to say?
I was totally jealous of you two. Obviously, you know him very well already, Greg, but I was on court coaching, so missed out on this one. But yeah, loved the interview. I'm actually got the opportunity to go to Rotterdam next week for the first time. I've seen it on TV, looks like a great event. So I'm actually going to get to experience it for myself and hopefully meet Richard at some point and catch up with him. But the most fascinating part for me, you kind of mentioned right at the start in the intro, how he would beat Alcaraz and Sinner. He actually said that he would probably still lose 10 times out of 10, which was interesting. But he said that he'd love to serve and volley. He'd love to get into the net and disrupt these players. And I think, there are some players on the tour now that could do that. And I would like to see it happen. You've got Draper, we've spoken about plenty of times. He has the game to be able to use that lefty serve to get in behind it and to get up to the net. You've got Shelton, another lefty with a huge serve and has the opportunity to come in behind it and volley. And I would love to see these players experiment with it more. Because when you look at the data, they actually succeed more often than not when they get in behind their serve. It's just having the courage to do it against two players that have incredible returns. And so, yeah, I would just like to see that. It would be very, very interesting. And then the topic about the ball change, again, is another one that would help this sort of game style, this more aggressive game style. If the balls changed more frequently after the first 5 games and then after the next 7 games, the balls would just be a little bit more fresh for more games throughout the match, allowing these serves to zip through the court a bit quicker and to see these more aggressive players coming through. I know there's been debates about the court surfaces and the balls favoring these top 2 players in Alcaraz and Sinner. I don't believe for a second that that's the reason for it. But what I do think is it does make the rallies last longer, which is better for television in lots of ways. So, yeah, I'd like to see an adjustment in the amount of games that these new balls are played for.
I'd also like to add on to that, Ashley. We saw Shelton when he lost to Sinner. He tried to kick serve and serve volley. He didn't really go after it. I think when you play Sinner and Alcaraz, you can't let them settle with a rhythm. I was lucky enough at the end of my career to have a practice session with Rafa. Every time I got in the rally, I was just destroyed. And with Sinner and Alcaraz, once they get on the front foot and into the rally, you're in trouble. And the reason Draper has done so well against Alcaraz is he's got a cannon of a serve. He returns exceptionally well, and he's taking the ball early, but he's working on his transition game to come forward as well. You can't go full out serve and volley, but you have to get the balance of it, and you cannot let them get comfortable, because once those 2 players are comfortable, you're almost 99% of the time second best. Kevin, what are your thoughts on those things and the topics we've discussed?
I thought Richard's point that players get beaten the same way all the time was quite a good one. That, if you've lost 7 or 8 times, I think De Minaur's lost 7 or 8 times now to Sinner in a row, and maybe De Minaur is never going to beat Sinner. That might just be the way that matchup works. But it just feels like he's not really trying. He hasn't got the weapons maybe to try, but he's not really trying anything. Maybe the serve volley, maybe putting in more loft on the ball to push Sinner back. They're not really. They're taking him on in a gunfight is never going to work. And I think that's what Richard's point was, that he gets a bit frustrated thinking that he's he's watching the same match over and over again. And Ben Shelton is used to going out blasting people off the court, but clearly that doesn't work against Jannik Sinner. So he's going to have to come up with something a bit different. He's young enough to do that, and obviously I think he's definitely a contender for Grand Slams down the road. But it's difficult to see the same pattern all the time. And Novak obviously changed. He's a good example of someone who changed it up both against Alcaraz and Sinner in the last year and got wins against them. So if Novak does it, obviously he's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time and the most successful male tennis player we've ever seen. So let's put that into perspective. The other guys are not as good as him, but it does feel like Novak, it almost is a blueprint of what you have to do. You have to try something different. What would you do, Greg, if you were going to play Sinner tomorrow? What would your game plan?
Well, I think Grigor Dimitrov played the perfect match at Wimbledon when he was up 2-0, and Roger Federer himself said, "I know how to play Sinner now after watching that Wimbledon match." And had Grigor not injured himself, Sinner wouldn't have won Wimbledon this year. I think he would have come through, upset Sinner, and we'd probably be talking about Alcaraz winning another Wimbledon title. So, you've got to have that slice, keep the ball low, quick into the forehand, coming forward. My game was very simple. I had to attack. I had to come forward. My ground strokes would not compete with those guys. My backhand was too weak coming over it, especially with the way the ball bounces so high these days. So it is a tough conundrum. These guys are better than my generation, as Richard said in that interview. They're physically stronger. They hit the ball harder. They do everything better. That's just the way the sport moves on. In between the years, it's still the same, but their physicality in tennis is no question better. But I'd like to see somebody like Shelton, who's improving, get that backhand better, take the ball early, position better. And I was a little disappointed in Australia because he tried a tactic that didn't work because he didn't come out guns blazing and he let Sinner settle. And once they're settled and feel comfortable, those top 2 guys, they get the job done. We saw in the finals with Djokovic, Alcaraz, Djokovic got off to a flyer, but Alcaraz didn't panic, because the fact that he knew Djokovic was a little bit tired. I wish Novak was a little fresher for that final down under. And we saw Novak going for the forehand more, going for the serve, willing to come forward. And people will start to see that, and they'll start to change, because they have to if they want to beat the top 2 players on the planet.
The other bit that Richard mentioned was talking about how all of his stars aligned to win that Wimbledon trophy. And I always say that I don't believe in luck, but the more I spend time on this podcast, the more I'm starting to believe that actually I'm wrong. Novak experienced it a little bit at the Aussie Open here, and obviously Richard. There were probably quite a few opponents that he could have come up against, including yourself, Greg, that he probably wouldn't have wanted to.
Well, he's being very kind, Ashley.
Maybe he felt you had to, being on your pod, Greg. But it's just interesting how sometimes the stars align, but you've still got to take that opportunity. It can add a little bit more pressure sometimes when you've got an easier opponent on paper. It can increase the pressure. So, he obviously did phenomenally well to win that title. I don't quite remember watching it live. I was 7 years old, and I didn't pick up a racket until I was 8. But I did watch it afterwards once I got into tennis. So.
We're feeling old,
great
Greg.
episode.
Feeling old.
You're making me feel really old here, because I remember the streaker running across the court. I remember Malavai, Washington. I remember Todd Martin up 5-11 the 5th set against Malavai, one of his probably most painful losses of his career for Todd Martin. I think, he says he was lucky, but he beat Stiek, the Wimbledon champion, and he broke Sampras's 25-win match streak at the championships. And he said my backhand wasn't good. I'm really sorry, but he had an unbelievable one-handed backhand. He, to me, if he didn't have so many injuries through his career with his knees, I mean, he would be one of those guys with multiple majors. He was that good, but it was always stop-start. And I'm glad he at least got his Wimbledon title, because he was a guy who had a winning record against Sampras, which Sampras during my generation was the new GOAT. He broke the record of 12 majors in the men's, which was held from Emerson from years to 14. And he thought that record was going to last for ages because it was 30 years old. Then he had 3 guys who came across and destroyed it. So, Richard to me is actually one of the greatest tennis players, even though he doesn't have, that double-digit slams or multiple slam wins. So it was a pleasure to speak to him. He's a great tournament director, great guy. And we're so happy his health is coming back as well after having that open heart surgery. So, we really appreciate him having on the podcast. And I hope you both enjoyed it. And, thanks again for watching Off Court with Greg. Subscribe, listen, go to all platforms, and please leave your feedback.